A very good morning I'd like to wish to Dr. Devika Naidu and my fellow friends present. Today, my groupmates and I have decided to choose the Catalytic converter as our project. I'm Vignesh, my groupmates are Anand Murthy, Tan Yue, and Ng Jung Yi. So, what is a catalytic converter? A catalytic converter is an exhaust emission control device that is installed in all internal combustion engine based vehicles. And what does that do? What is the purpose of your catalytic converter? Well, it reduces the amount of toxic byproducts that's being released by your exhaust fumes of your normal car. So your normal car exhaust fumes releases harmful byproducts such as carbon monoxide, hydrocarbons, and nitrogen dioxide. That is really harmful for the environment and causes air pollution, one of the main pollutions in the world. So on your third slide, you can see your basic principle of how your catalytic converter works. On the left hand side is where your exhaust fumes comes from, which is your carbon monoxide, your nitrogen dioxide, and your hydrocarbons. And it passes through a ceramic honeycomb-like material that then causes a reaction and release your less harmful byproducts such as carbon dioxide, your water. And on the fourth slide, so the reaction that is being done in your catalytic converter is by catalyzing a redox reaction. So a few examples of redox reaction is given there. The first one is using carbon monoxide. And what does it do to carbon monoxide? It reacts, it causes a redox reaction, which then gives us a byproduct, which is carbon dioxide, which is a way better byproduct than carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide, as you all know, causes the depletion of your ozone layer, which causes a huge air pollution problem. And on your second redox reaction is your hydrocarbons, that is then going through a redox reaction to produce carbon dioxide and water, which is a way better byproduct than hydrocarbons, which of course causes harmful effects, which like the depletion of your ozone layer. Just for your information, 72% of nitrogen dioxide and 52% of the reactive hydrocarbons are released in our atmosphere if we do not use your catalytic converter. If you're using your normal car that it is released from your exhaust fumes, that is what happens. So, moving on. There are two main types of catalytic converter out there, which is the two-way and the three-way. So to further explain about this thing and to move on, I'd like to invite our next friend. Thank you.
There are several differences and similarities between a two-way and three-way catalytic converter. The similarities are that these two catalytic converters oxidize carbon monoxide into carbon dioxide. They also oxidize hydrocarbons into carbon dioxide and water. The similarities are a two-way catalytic converter does not oxidize nitrogen oxide and also has become obsolete. A three-way catalytic converter, however, separates nitrogen oxide into nitrogen and oxygen and has become the main type of catalytic converter that's being used. Now, the main parts of a catalytic converter consist of a catalyst substrate, which is usually made of ceramic, and this ceramic is coated with the catalysts. These are platinum, palladium, and rhodium, also known as noble metals. Now, statics is a subdivision of mechanics that is concerned with the forces that act on bodies at rest under equilibrium conditions. More specifically, in a catalytic converter, static equilibrium exists before and after the redox reaction, where no more forward or backward reaction takes place. At static equilibrium, the forces acting on the particles before and after the redox reaction are the same. Let's take carbon dioxide as an example. Carbon dioxide has dipoles that point at opposite directions. These intermolecular forces are known as London dispersion forces, and they cancel each other out as they are in opposite direction but the same in magnitude. This allows carbon dioxide to remain in equilibrium. Static equilibrium is achieved when the net forces acting on an object or molecule is equal to zero.
Hi, my name is Yue, and today I will be talking about the positive impacts of a catalytic converter. Firstly, I would like to talk about its environmental impacts. Needless to say, the primary purpose of a catalytic converter is to reduce or outright prevent hazardous emissions from coming out of automobiles. Now, let's get into the details. As an automobile engine burns through fuel, many toxic byproducts such as hydrocarbons, carbon monoxide, and nitrogen oxide are created and released. When inhaled, they may cause serious health implications, such as cancer. Furthermore, the toxic byproducts released are also harmful to the environment, as they contribute to global warming. The installation of a catalytic converter would greatly reduce the number of toxic byproducts through redox reactions. The importance of a catalytic converter has led many countries to adopt a certain carbon regulation policy that requires the installation of a catalytic converter. In addition to being environmentally friendly, the legally binding requirement of catalytic converters have inadvertently led to the research and eventual introduction of more sophisticated engine control technologies. With the rise of carbon emission taxes, automobile manufacturers have been forced to design engines with greater fuel efficiency to meet the regulation standards. Now, albeit the regulations have costed automobile manufacturers a fortune in research and development, it ultimately benefits us consumers as a whole because we spend less money on fuel. The device is also relatively inexpensive and are mostly fitted into most commercial vehicles, in addition to planes and boats. As such, from a monetary standpoint, a catalytic converter is all good and no harm. Additionally, a catalytic converter also serves as a pseudo-muzzle. This means that a car fitted with a catalytic converter will be relatively silent when compared to a car without it, as it is mandatory for automobiles in most big cities to have a catalytic converter. By extension, catalytic converters will also reduce sound pollution, which is really rampant in metropolises. However, many car enthusiasts treat this silence as a negative, as they like the raw sound of the exhaust and engine. Even so, a catalytic converter is not without flaws. There are a lot of people who choose to remove the catalytic converter, even though it is illegal in many states and countries. For the next part, I will now pass the baton to my friend Junyi.
Guys, I'm Junyi from the Catalytic Converter group. For my part, what I'm doing is all about the negativity of catalytic converter. The catalytic converter is usually widely used in automobile and in industry. It is invented at the late 20th century. So, what is so good about removing a catalytic converter? It is a component of the car. So, if you remove it, does it have a benefit for us? Now I will talk about it. Firstly, by removing the catalytic converter, your car will, it will sound greater. Maybe for me, I like the car engine sound rev to higher, so you can feel that you are accelerating while you are driving. Two video below I shows it's all about the car with a catalytic converter and a car without the catalytic converter. For me, I like the car without the catalytic converter because it's just sound better and it's louder. For me, sound louder is not a bad thing, because sound louder, it is more safer. Because when you plan to cut someone through the motorway, a louder exhaust will make others driver aware that you are planning to cut through him. Second, By removing the catalytic converter, or the car without the catalytic converter, it will have more horsepower on it, because the catalytic converter will make the engine produce less horsepower. They got a sensor connected within the catalytic converter and the engine. So when the engine produces a lot of environmental unfriendly gas or the bad gas, it will lower down your engine performance, and it obviously will cause a loss in horsepower. A car with a catalytic converter will have a lesser fuel option. Do you remember when you go to petrol station to pump petrol? There's a sign behind the petrol tank door. It's written there, unleaded fuel only. Do you ever think that what will happen when we pump leaded fuel into our car? The leaded fuel will cause our car catalytic converter to spoil, and it will destroy, and we need to spend a certain amount of money to repair the catalytic converter, because the engine light will be lightened until you repair the car catalytic converter. A car without the catalytic converter will never have this kind of problem, so he can access to a lot of fuel option. From here, I will pass to Vignesh for the conclusion of the catalytic converter project. Okay.
So, in a nutshell, the presence of catalytic converter in all internal combustion vehicles is a must. More regulation should be imposed to prevent air pollution, such as implementing the catalytic converter in vehicles. The pros of installing one outweighs the cons by a big margin. And this proves that the presence of catalytic converter is a necessity. As we all know, a cleaner world is a better world. And why don't we start one by cleaning the air? And we can start that by having a catalytic converter in each and every one's car. Thank you. That's all from us.